With the FDA's latest approval of lecanemab on last Friday, what we see here is very consistent results with an anti-amyloid therapy used in early symptomatic stages of Alzheimer's disease, and it builds on the prior aducanumab data. So it shows us in a more consistent way that we can impact the underlying biology of the disease. We can clear amyloid, which is the earliest bad actor that we can identify in this disease. We can clear it substantially with lecanemab, and we see clinical benefit. We see slowing of disease. And in the case of lecanemab, the FDA used the phase 2 study for the accelerated approval process. They will use the phase 3 data, which has already been presented and published, for the full approval process, which we're very hopeful about. But we see significant disease slowing, not modest, moderate degree of slowing in cognition, in day-to-day function, reduced caregiver burden, improved quality of life or less declining quality of life in people who are living in the community and still largely independent, despite their diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease. We haven't seen that before. And now 2 drugs, one building on the other, showing similar but more consistent effects. So I think this is a pivotal time for our field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously, with any sort of drug class, we're building up, getting better results, better drugs throughout the time. And I think that a lot of people would agree that this is a stepping stone of sorts for even future approvals and future therapies to come down the road. So you sort of touched upon it before that this obviously was approved under the accelerated approval pathway. But I know obviously Eisai had submitted a supplemental BLA for traditional approval of lecanemab. So what does that ultimately entail for the drug? Could it have serious impacts on availability and accessibility? Sort of what does that exactly mean going forward?
Right. So the FDA has granted conditional approval based on the accelerated pathway. And with that conditional approval, without confirmatory data, the FDA could withdraw its approval. And also funding bodies like CMS have opted at this point not to fund anti-amyloid drugs that are approved conditionally or via the accelerated pathway. So Eisai has turned around very quickly and submitted the phase 3 data already late last week, just immediately following the accelerated pathway approval, to request full traditional approval. And what that means is, if they're successful and the FDA grants full approval, that we don't have this tenuous situation where approval could be withdrawn, and we have a much greater opportunity to have insurers fund the drug so that it can be much more available and accessible to patients.